Welcome to another episode here at Lighting Bot. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. Today we'll be talking to Harid. He currently works at Splash Damage. He's done a couple of cool titles. Kina is being one of them, which I'm sure most of you have been playing because I've been seeing you spamming it on Discord with lighting and whatnot. So we have an opportunity to talk a little bit about it, but more about Harid. So as usual, please ask questions during the conversation. We're always happy to learn more about stuff that you are curious about. It helps us with the podcast and it makes my job easier as well. So please welcome Harid into the conversation.
Hey,
Hey man.
hello, Amit. Yeah, I'm good. We are having a usual British day in Bromley today. I love it. I'm not like a summer person, so I really enjoy it.
That's
How's it?
good.
How about you?
I'm good. I have a poor internet, so for the record, everyone, if I suddenly slow down or if there's a glitch, don't panic. It just takes a few minutes for me to get back on. And hello, Edwin Vargas, for tuning in. Thank you for your support as usual. Probably a few questions coming our way if he's around too. So Edwin, that's good. You are here, and a couple of other I see you here. I'll acknowledge you in a few minutes. Um, Harid, you have been around for a bit. Let's talk a little bit quickly to introduce you, because as usual, people aren't
Sure.
all knowing. They don't know you necessarily. So, who
Mhm.
is Harid? What's your background, and where do you start?
All right. So, Harid is a weirdo. Was born in Cyprus, and briefly through my career, I discovered my interest in the university. So, I studied visual communication design in Eastern Mediterranean University, Cyprus. And at my third year, I took a small lecture, a side lecture, which was the basic game design. And through that lecture, I discovered that, all right, I love to play games. I played games through my entire life. Cliche sentence, but it's the truth. And through that lecture, I thought, all right, I love doing games as well, like making games as well. Back then, it was like game design studio in the course. And after some time, I tried several stuff about game designing. So I tried to be like a full stack kind of designer as an like an indie developer. And I discovered that I don't like coding that much, which in fact I hate.
A lot of
And
people.
then I started to work or like try to be a level designer, which in fact back in time there were like lots of videos online telling speed level design videos, which in fact like level arts, which was not level designs. And then I discovered that level design is something different. It's actual design. It's not and game art kind of stuff. And I was
Hmm.
like, all right, nope, this is not my thing. And then discovered the thing about level art. And when I was practicing it, I realized that I love to give a mood, give a character to these environments. And then when I researched, I found out there is an expertise called lighting artist. And I was like, oh, that's me. That's what I want to be. And then I self-taught myself in Unreal Engine and then moved to Istanbul to study master's degree in Bahcesehir University, which also I was lucky enough to be a lecturer there. But unfortunately, I couldn't finish the master's because I started working in the industry and I didn't have time. So if they're gonna watch it or if they are here, hi to my dear lecturers. They're still angry with me that I didn't finish it, but consequences. So then I worked with Kitbash 3. Actually, before Kitbash 3D, I worked in some small Turkish companies, and then Kitbash 3D, and then Real-Time UK with Ghostmasters on Formula One, then Ember Lab, and here I am in Splash Damage.
Cool. And so yeah, that's interesting to hear. I remember I also did some level design. Shout out to worldofleveldesign.com. That's a good place to go where you if you want to learn some level design. So you have already done a little bit over the period of time. You worked at Ember Lab. Obviously, you did Kina there, I believe.
Mhm.
EA Codemaster. I think you did F Formula One or something car game, if I remember.
Yeah, the Breaking Point game mode cinematics.
Hmm. And then you did, I think, something for Kit Bash as well.
Hmm.
Don't
Hmm.
recall what it was, but you did something there. So, what have you learned over the few years now? Now that you have done a couple of things, and you also been a lecturer, how
Hmm.
was that experience? Did that help you at all to improve and learn lighting
Lecturing,
as well?
lecturing is an amazing thing, and what I believe about lecturing is another set of skills. So someone who is really proficient in their craft is not necessarily is a good teacher as well. So it is like a separate set of craft, which I believe and actually I hope that I have the both skill sets, that I have my craft and the ability to teach it. And I love teaching. I love training people. I like sharing my knowledge with people. And in that regard, how it helped me is if you know something enough to explain it clearly, then that means that you really know something about it. So actually, through teaching, especially in Bahcesehir University, when I was teaching my students, when they like bombard me with questions, sometimes I was realizing, all right, I need to actually research about that as well. So this is something that I don't totally know, so I need to research about it. And I was like telling my students, all right, give me a week, I'll take a look and then explain it to you. So through that, it helps my learning curve, to be honest. So because there's a saying in Turkish, like one hand has nothing, but two hand has the sound, has the clap. So it's something like my students were always coming with this stuff that probably I didn't even think about, and then I needed to answer these. Sometimes I knew the questions, sometimes I did not, and I needed to research. And actually, as an artist, it like really helped me to develop. And yeah, I like it.
I use the same saying with the hands for relationship that you need two people, and if
Hmm.
to make it work and have a nice sound, you need both of them to kind of work together to make a
Yeah,
good
yeah,
clapping sound.
totally, totally.
So, what have you learned in terms of soft skills? Because of course, when you're in lecture, you have to be with people, you have to develop more human
Mhm.
skills, less technical skills, and how's that been in favor of you so far?
The most important thing, this is both for the lecturing and our industry in general, but being actually a, how to tell, a team player. You're not alone, especially if you're creating a AAA title or like AA title like Kana, you're not alone. You can't just go by yourself and you're not lone wolf. And you always have a team and you need to support them and they need to support you. So being aware of that, being social in your relations is probably the most important soft skill. Well, there are like soft skills that you need to have, but communications is a key skill, key soft skill. So yeah, that's
Hmm.
basically I learned this through the years, and even now, some people might call me like old in that regard, old-fashioned, but I still love and prefer face-to-face communication over the new hybrid stuff. Now, I'm not really against it. And there are certain situations which I like through my whole freelancing career, I was doing it online. But still, I don't think that is really like taking place of an actual good face-to-face communication with the people.
Hmm. Hey David, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate the support. Hey Dirk, good to see you too.
Who?
Just see
There
to
is
the
my
news
man.
thing.
Hey, Dick.
So, luckily, so far I know everyone, so I can always guess their name. So I would think, in terms of freelancing, what's the difference between freelancing and working in the studio for you? What have you learned so far?
Yeah, so in freelancing, the different thing is generally, no offense in that regard, but you are the man there to solve the problems. So generally, when you're freelancing, the pressure, like I just gonna quote that, it's not because I don't want to say that I was under pressure while doing these titles, but generally you are under more burden because you're expected to have that skills when you hired. So in that regard, it's a bit more difficult than actually working in a studio. In a studio environment, you have your leads, you have your seniors, you have your art directors together in the same team, and you're part of that team. But in freelancing, you actually hired from outside, and you are required to solve the problems, generally help them to solve the problems or find the answers. In not always though, not always though. Especially, it was not like that in Amber Lab. I really felt like a part of the team in Amber Lab, but generally, while freelancing, you're required to be more master of your craft so that you'll answer the questions because you're basically hired to help to fix these stuff. But that was the main difference for me. And then actually in the studio, I like the social side of Splash Damage, to be honest. It's like a really social studio, and I like the human interaction. So I'm now working in the studio. I'm not working remotely, and like during the day, I can just go to tables of my friend and make jokes with them. Just join them for a game of Smash Bros. Or like pool or table football, anything. So I actually love that part of being in the studio. You're actually there.
Makes
These
sense.
are the difference.
So if a title is delayed in the future, we know it's because you played too much pool and too much Super Smash Brothers,
Don't quote me on
basically.
that.
We're like, ah, we know why, we know why.
Hey boys, did we forget about something?
The deadlines? Oh shit.
Oh
Oh,
no.
forgot about it. That's
But
good.
yeah, that's basically. But again, freelancing is another thing, and I strongly believe that every artist should try it sometime. It's a whole different set of story.
So what's yeah, because I remember when I was doing a lot of freelancing, it was definitely more, it required more skill set because you couldn't really ask people for help. You couldn't really get the necessary support all the time. So it makes sense. You need to be a bit more resourceful, I would say, and longer hours in my case too. I remember.
Yeah, resourceful is the better word, like not having a better skill set, because when you're actually in your studio, you also have the same skill set. But when you're freelance, again, like you said, you might be the guy that they hired in order to find the answers to the questions. So being more proficient in your skill set would be the probably the better way of explaining it, at least in my experience.
And how proficient do you think someone needs to be today in terms of procedural based lighting or PBR compared to before?
They need to, because especially PBR now is part of, actually, I can say that it's a part of lighting, because anything broken in PBR will affect us at all. So in the craft, if something is wrong, and you need to be aware of what's going on. I call it speaking the common language with the artists. So you basically need to know the basics, at least basics of these stuff, so that you'll be able to communicate with the other team. So for example, you lit an environment up, all the materials are fine, but then there is this one object which is super dark and there's no way of getting it to the actual level of visibility. And you can go and speak with material people and then tell them, hey, I'm having this problem. Do you think that we have a problem there? Or actually, which in fact, I sometimes go ahead and check the PPI knowledge if I suspect that something is broken. And then, hey guys, I think there's something wrong here. Can we do something about it? And like speaking this common language is a really important thing.
Makes sense. And what are your thoughts and advice for someone to understand this common language, to understand what to look for when it comes to these things?
Can you repeat the question again? I missed the first
So
part.
you mentioned dark materials and stuff like that. So a lot of people who are learning lighting, they are learning lighting and not necessarily the other things to spot necessarily. Like it's a certain learning curve. So what are your advice to pick up on that and understand that that's what they need to look for as a lighting artist?
Yeah, so we started with materials. I'll go with the materials. So PBR is extremely important for us to understand. So what is the range of the albedos should be? What is the range of roughnesses and other stuff? So what the maps are doing, having the understanding of the maps and the stuff to be able to basically debug what's going on is important to understand, because when you have a scene with broken materials, no matter what you do, there's it's going to be more difficult for you to balance out. So knowing about these PBS stuff, for example, they can go in, all right, let me take a look and go into base color mode and take the reading from Pixel Inspector and say, oh, that's what this is off, so I need to boost it up. I'm talking about in like a personal work, for example. Oh, I can go ahead and boost it up and then put it into an actual PBR range where it's supposed to be, and then it will be fine. So what I suggest in that regard for the new lighters and even the mids and maybe seniors to know about PBR, it's important.
Okay, that makes sense. Hey, early gamer. I keep forgetting your name. I'm so sorry. I hate it when people don't have the proper name. So let's take a question since we are already in this topic. So there's one question. Using tools to visualize and buffer views helps a lot with material troubleshooting. Are there any other methods you can tell us to check for PBR valid ranges?
Yeah, totally. The first thing I'm using is the pixel inspector, obviously. So taking the what was the name of it? I keep forgetting its name. Scene color, I think. Taking the scene color reading from base color view mode is actually a way of debugging it. So I'm taking the reading from RGB channels, add them together, and then divide it into three to get the overall linear range of the base color, and then just referencing it to a PBR chart. Or what also I like to do is that there is a PBR validation thing in ArtStation from Iri Shinjo. I think, sorry if I butchered your name. Iri Shinjo. He explained the way of doing it. So in Photoshop, you drop down either the base color view mode or the texture itself, the base color of it, and then do some work there, setting a channels adjust level on top of it, setting it to monochrome, and setting all the channels RGB into 33%, and then adding a exposure adjustment level, then setting its gamma to 0.4545. That basically gives you the linear color of the base color, because in Unreal 4 and 5 it actually is in linear rendering, linear color gamut, and it converts it to sRGB. So in sRGB, when you think that it's actually bright, it is not in linear, and Unreal uses linear. So it is a good trick to take a look at that in Photoshop as well. So that's the another thing that I'm checking. So basically, Pixel Inspector and Photoshop.
We'll try and post the resources afterwards when we find it.
Yeah, surely.
We'll
I actually got to take a look and find it somewhere in my bookmarks, and I'll forward it to you, and then we can share it online. Actually, I think
uh,
if
what's the name? What do you
people
think the name is?
Irish Shinjo, if people search it as PBR validation ArtStation, because that was in ArtStation, they can find it, I think.
Just different one at this stage. We'll have to see.
Let me take a look in the background as
Hoke,
well.
there's one from Hoke, there's one from Sorob, Harrison Naylor.
Oh, I found him. I found him. It is Shinsoj, senior technical artist at Flying Wild Hog. So in his portfolio, there is probably in Unreal Engine, I guess, or in blog, I think. Oh no, yeah, it's in blog. So it is called PBR Color Space Conversion Albedo chart. Actually, I'm gonna drop it down in the chat. I found it. There we go. Where is it? Yeah, so I'm dropping it in the comments. Can I drop it? Oh, somehow I can't.
If you drop it in private chat, I'll do it.
Okay, thank you. Also, actually, there was another resource on that from Ron Haimov, who is a really good lighting artist. He is the lead lighting artist in Hangar 13 now, I think. He also has a LinkedIn post about these PBR validation stuff as well, so people can search about that as well.
Yeah, I think these are very good advices, I think, and good things for people to look up into and learn a little bit. Yeah, this one, I remember seeing this actually a few days ago. Someone shared it actually a few days ago too. Yeah, I know. It was my colleague Vishesh who stumbled upon it and shared it on the company Slack actually. So that's why I recognize the top stuff. It's a good one. For some people this gets a bit technical as well. I see. but it should be
But
fine.
like lighting is evolved into something that is not purely artistic, but it's kind of a like a technical art. Because now with the introduction of the physical stuff, we more and more we need to know about these like technical stuff as well. The more you know, the better you can reverse engineer what you're actually doing as well. Like with other people's work and the work that you see, you can even the real world as well, because basically we are referencing the real world itself in most of the times. Actually, all the time. That everything that we do is based on something in the real world. So we just mix and match some ideas, some concepts, some phenomenon, and then we create our fantasy stuff. So yeah, it's important.
Mm. And so people are obviously learning Unreal Engine or Unity Engine when they're learning lighting. What other tools would you recommend a lighting artist should be at least have an introductory level at?
Photoshop, DaVinci Resolve.
And
So
the rest you have to just understand.
the rest, it would be good if you know some basic modeling tools as well, Blender, Maya. I actually never needed to use them so far. Fortunately, I'm not a fan of modeling, to be honest. But especially DaVinci Resolve is more and more becoming an industry standard. So for color grading and other stuff, yeah, it will be good to know about it. Photoshop is more like a diverse tool where you can use it for validations, like we spoke recently, and again, grading and any kind of stuff, editing the photo. Like when you put an image online, it can help you to create basically create a composition better sometimes.
Yeah, it's definitely very useful to learn these things. I think one thing I have personally noticed is a lot of people focus a lot on the technical stuff, but they lack a lot of the art foundation
Hmm.
to actually make good lighting to begin with. So even if they're understanding the technical stuff, they don't have the eye to actually pull it off to begin with. So it's a very fine balance. I think it's a yin and yang kind of balance thing. You have to keep improving both, so to speak. But I think a lot of people are more likely to be a good lighting artist if you first develop your artistic eye before you start
Certainly,
too
certainly,
much.
certainly, because it is derived from the art stuff as well, and it is like both a curse and a blessing for the technical art stuff because we need to know about the artistic side, we need to know about the technical side as well. So knowing them both is like both a curse and both a pro and con, actually. And I totally agree. So I see lots of works in the art station, especially in the era of Unreal 4, where they know the technical stuff so well, they can get an awesome bake, perfect. Like almost like real lighting. But I saw that lighting in other 100 works as well. What you're trying to explain to me, what you're trying to show me here. So what I like about Unreal 5 introduced that these kind of more technical stuff is more easier to do now with Lumen and the Nanite stuff. Now we in the future, hopefully we won't be needing to bake lighting, for example. And now the technical side is, albeit it's not going to be equal. It is going to be as much as you practice it. But now everybody will have the same base of the technical understanding or technical tools, let's say. Now it will be more easier to express yourself without it, not without, but not limited by the technical knowledge. Probably that would be a better way of explaining it. And the basics of art is really important for all game artists, not just modelers, not just art directors. For us as well, knowing about stagecraft, knowing about stage lighting, theater lighting, photography, and these kind of stuff. So, for example, I was recently reading a book called Book and Light, a guide for realist painter from James Gurney, I think. Yes, James Gurney, was like probably like a Bible of for lighters. It has so much interesting information that he's a painter, and the book is generally aimed for painters, but the information inside it also applicable for us as well because basically we are doing the same thing with them, but they're using their hands and paints, we're using hands, PC, and rendering. So at the base level, it's the same thing.
Makes sense. It's a very common book. People I think it's Color Light, a guide for realistic painting. I
A
think it is.
guide for the realist painter.
Yeah, so cover. It's the one with the bird in front or something on the
Yeah,
brown
yeah,
color.
like an
Yeah, yeah,
orange brown colored. Yeah.
yeah. I started painting after reading the book, so I do paint as well. So that's kind of interesting.
I never
Um,
had the courage to try it, to be honest, the painting.
it's a lot of hard work, but I think anything is it takes time and investment.
Your
Even for
your voice is
photography,
cutting.
even photography is the best now. The
Your
voice.
your voice cut off. You gotta
Okay,
repeat
so
again.
so um, I think everything takes time, you know, even photography, painting, concept art.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
but I
Hmm.
think to be a very masterful lighting artist, good luck. I think you have to learn technical art, painting, interior design, lighting. There's a lot of things you can learn from to really, stand out and really be great at
Actually,
being a
you
lighting
you
artist.
mentioned a really great point because that was the question that I was receiving some time ago. Some people found my phone number and like messaged me, "Hey, I want to get some private lessons from you. Teach me this stuff that you're doing." I can teach you. I can teach you what I know, but I can't make you a better artist if you don't know anything, if you don't develop yourself. It is a matter of training yourself. It's not just, all right, it's not knowing like, hey, this is a bottle. It is about training yourself to open the cap up and actually know how to drink it. And yeah, like you said, it takes time, it takes practice, it takes dedication. It's not like, all right, it's the worst mistake an artist can do is after some time, and they're like, all right, I'm an awesome artist, I'm a world-class artist, and anyway, anything that I do, anything that I post online is gonna be a hit. No, you can learn anything from everyone. You shouldn't underestimate a junior because the junior can do something better than you. Maybe their perception of color is better than you. So leave the egos out. You don't need it. Like I'm talking about the positive, I'm negative, sorry, not positive, the negative ego, the toxic ego. And I believe every artist needs a positive ego to keep their values, but not toxic ego to underestimate people or think that they are the best. There's no best around. No one is the best.
That is a very important point, and I see a lot of people are watching. Please like and subscribe, you ninja watchers. I know my statistics says half of you don't even like and subscribe, so you better be doing that. So
Do
thank you
it.
for doing it, and ask questions. It's a good opportunity to learn more here as well. So feel free to feel comfortable asking questions. There's no stupid questions.
Yeah,
We'll
certainly.
put them up, and it's always
I mean,
fun to have you guys ask.
even if it's something that I won't be able to answer or I can't answer, I'll just tell, and nothing's gonna be stupid. So don't be afraid of me. I'm not gonna eat you.
Exactly. And in terms of learning and growth,
Hmm.
how did you learn and grow after you finished your university? Did you join
Hmm.
any courses, mentorship, or
No,
stuff like that, or
no,
did you just?
not necessarily on lighting. So the master's course that I went in Bahcesehir University was actual and an overall game design kind of stuff. So it was like game design theories, not necessarily on game art. And again, I trained myself. I had the background because I studied visual communication design. So I just, developed on top of that foundation. But still, regardless of the department that you're studying in the university, department of how good university you're in, it still needs time and dedication. And back to my journey, I was also blessed to work with really good art directors, especially in my early career. Like there are two really important figures in my life. In my early career, I can like count several really important actors for me, but for my early career, Kerem Hünal and Onurcan Çaylı, they were really important for me. Both hold my hand and they were like helped me in my growth. But I never got an actual mentorship like Vertex or CGMA, let's say. Not like that. I just learned most of this stuff by myself and then through experience, actually.
That's good. But if you want to learn, you have an opportunity to learn lighting bot. You can learn very quick and you can learn affordably. I need to refill my water, so we're gonna take a quick break. Have a watch. If that was useful, you should head over to courses.lightingbot.com and consider some of the courses and mentorship. You'll be able to learn all of these things: fundamental of lighting, incorrect materials, exposure, EV, how to use volumetrics, how to deal with light bidding, how to do post-process grading, emissive, how to do fill light and extra lighting, different times of day, how you do it differently for the each day using EV, how to go away from the EV and technical lighting to do artistic lighting, understanding curves, analyzing painting, how it affects your art and lighting, how to train your eye and how to learn from painting, candle principle, Purkinje effect, game optimization, the danger of fog that a lot of people don't understand, and lots more. Again, we have had people go through the course and get work. We have some testimonial you can check. A little bit about myself, my co-author Sander, who has been going through the content and improving the content as well. He's a technical lighting artist, so more technical than myself. And you can check all the content that's being added on a regular basis, fundamental stuff, advanced stuff, technical stuff, and we're still adding new content because when students join, they have an ability to ask for some learning. Basically, you can also upgrade to monthly mentorship. You get some extra stuff for discount price, and you have me and other mentors. If you upgrade to 5 months, you can have an opportunity to get some career roadmaps or different offers. If you want a very specific offer, just talk to me and I'll schedule something specific for you as well. Okay, a great opportunity to learn. All right, just in time.
That was a great way of advertising. Squeezing it in the middle, and then going for the water.
Yeah, it was a good opportunity. I didn't fill up my bottle when we were talking earlier, but yeah, thank you. So I think very important these opportunities are, and I think when it comes to PBR and PBL, a lot of people are still learning about it. So how much do you think it's gonna change the workflow? Do you think we're gonna go away from artistic lighting, where we kind of break the PBR values, or do you think it's a two different world, two different style, two different things?
They're not different, actually, they work together. Because
Mm,
even if when we use PBR and PBL, there are certain cases where you might want to break it slightly. So we actually creating the worlds that we're creating, right? So we don't have any restrictions and limitations, anything that's limiting to us. As long as it works, it works. As long as it's not breaking anything, it'll be fine. So it would be good to change some stuff, as long as the team that you're working together is aware of that. Because when they're relying on some kind of values, and if you break it, and then they need to iterate on it, and then, hey, what's going on here? So communication is key again here. But I don't think that it's gonna really make us go away from artistic work, because actually PBR and PBL are just tools for us to create. They're not just restricted guidelines for us to use. They are guidelines to refer to. So we are not really restricted. All right, so in the interior is 5 EV, so I need to use 5 EV for it. No, I mean you might want to do a like artistic underexposure, artistic overexposure, these kind of stuff. So I don't think that is gonna like take us away from artistic work. What it will add to us is, especially with the physical based lighting, now we have the charts, the values that we can reference to. So instead of just eyeballing, now for example an overcast. So we have an overcast scene. I can tell, hey, this is like probably 13 EV outside. So I can set my exposure to 13 EV and then get the according lux levels and then build on top of that. So it can make some stuff easy, especially the making the foundation more solid.
because I know at Ubisoft they tend to be very strict with the EV stuff. That you have to stick within 5 to 7 if it's interior and so on and so forth. And with the latest game that was came out a week ago, 2 weeks ago, as Dusk Falls, the one I did
Mhm.
recently, we overrided a lot of logic. There
Hmm.
was certain places you wanted to be super bright and super burnout, and certain places you wanted to be super black, and that wouldn't be possible if I respected
Hmm.
pure PBR and EV workflow.
Hmm.
Also, it was done in Unity URP, so it does come with its challenges too.
Hmm.
So that's why I was asking and wondering about your thought process about it too.
Hmm.
Because I personally go away. I use it as a base now, but I also go away from it if I think it looks better, basically, or it tells a better story, basically. But you have been doing cinematic lighting and game lighting. How does that relate to you? Because obviously, game lighting, there's just certain things you have to do, especially for multiplayer at least, and there's certain things you can't do, and there's certain things you can do cinematic. What are your thoughts and opinion on those differences?
They are two different spectrums, to be honest. They're two different worlds because in the game lighting, you need to consider the environment as a 360 degrees thing, and the player can do anything that they want to, as long as the game allows them to. You know, they can push the boundaries of the game. I'm like kind of that player as well. I like to go around and check what's going on, especially checking the lighting in the environment. So the challenge for game lighting is first optimization. Probably all of us like probably hate it. And two is thinking 360 degrees. So these two key challenges for the game lighting. In cinematic lighting, as long as it fits the art direction and it looks as it's supposed to be, as good as it's supposed to be, as cinematic as it's supposed to be, you're fine. So this is the pro side of the cinematics. But the con side, especially in the pre-rendered cinematics, is like rendering. Again, even if it's in real time engine, for example, if you're getting your renders through Unreal, as we did in Kena Bridge of Spirits, again, you need to render something out, right? And rendering is a tedious process. That is the con side of cinematics, and yeah, like they're like different worlds.
So since you mentioned the game, do you want to show some of the videos and maybe explain a little bit about the idea, the thought process behind it from a creative point of view?
Yeah, sure. Let me go for the art station. So I had some videos there in my portfolio. Am I sharing my screen at the moment?
Yeah, let me add it.
Yeah, there we go. So let me see. So I gotta take a look what's where because I don't really memorize where they were. So for example, let's start with Taro's spirit type. So I need to warn beforehand, this might be a like minor spoilers for the game. So beware, and then don't blame me for the spoilers. So the for this scene, for example, the what is it called? Ah, I forgot the word. The briefing for the scene was the forest was corrupted by a spirit, and I needed to reflect that feeling. And the lighting that I was doing here was built on top of the actual scene, the game lighting. I think Boa Simon, the lead lighting artist, was responsible from that scene for the game lighting. Sorry if I'm mistaken on that. And then the things that I needed about it, all right, I need to keep the feeling, but make it more cinematic. So adding more, I was having this freedom of adding more atmospheric stuff, which would be a bit hard to optimize for the in-game and more fill lights and detailed lighting in the characters. So in this scene, for example, if I would leave that scene with the actual game lighting, since it was not really aimed for a mugshot, for example, the face was a bit flat and not that much cinematic because the light was not dedicated for it. So when I had that shot, for example, I was thinking, all right, what I need to think, not think, what I actually make the audience to think about that scene. So what is Kana thinking here? What is going on? So that was the first scene. So when I start a scene, I take a look at the previs and watch the scene if it's like ready scene. I watch it and try to understand what is going on and read the briefing if I can. So for example, in here, you can see it is like a split lighting, which shows the conflict in Kena. She needs to help the spirit, but there are consequences, there are questions for her to answer. There are dilemmas going on. So we needed to reflect that. On the right side of her face, for example, you can see a warmer light coming from the mask, which represent the mask. And on the left side, it is like a darker, more bluish tone, which reflects the corrupted forest. So the mask represents the spirit. The cold colors represent the forest. So that was actually how I was thinking this split lighting. So it's not just, all right, conflict, split lighting. No, it's like a deeper thought process. And if you take a look at the shots, some of them are artistic shots to explain. Some of them are more storytelling approach. So, for example, in that shot, in that small excerpt from the scene, this is more like an artistic take of using a different bloom than the game to really show off this the sigils on the mask, which again represent some stuff in the game, and to better visually represent the object for the audience to get a sense of it. You know what I mean? To make it look good, to actually make the work, do awesome work in the environment and prop people to shine in that regard. And there are other kinds of lighting that I'll show. Let me take a look what's going on. For example, in this shot, I love that one. So this shot starts as a really overcast, corrupted look. And as it progresses, the lightning comes in and then rain starts, which again is a transitional phase from the gameplay to the boss battle environment, because that was a pre-boss battle scene. And in that regard, we used it to create a transition from the actual gameplay area to the boss area lighting. So it was like a creative way of transitioning the lighting, you know what I mean? So we can also help the game teams as the cinematic team. And then see, this was how the boss introduced. And then the boss battle starts with this rainy atmosphere. So let's take a look at another one. Actually, this one, yeah. Another transitional one, which I really like. So again, for example, this one, which shows like a split lighting again. The cold, the pain, the despair Taro's having, and then the warmth. He's trying to help someone. I'm not going to spoil that. He's trying to help someone. That warmth on his face. He's like, he's pain. He's searching for them. He can't find them. So there is a story. So I need to be aware of that story. And of course, like I'm just putting it together with the more technical or theoretical knowledge that I know. Again, like we previously mentioned, that's why I need to know about, because if I want to reflect that, I need to know about the cinematic theory, cinematic lighting theory, or like portrait lighting theories, right? So it is something together. And this shot, I love that shot. This is again a transitional shot from the actual world, and like after explosion again. I'm not gonna really spoil it, but I love that to tell these stories. So what we were telling before that explosion, the world was a normal place, and then came the explosion. So this really cool transition, which we came up with to have that first that blow off and then the transitional change of I'm not sure if you can see it, if there's a like a streaming compression, but if you watch it through here through the explosion, you can see the transition of colors. And I think that was a really good way for that transition to be. So basically you can see it's not just making the props and characters look cinematic, but we are actually telling stories. We're supporting the story. That is the thought process. And in all of the shots, you can tell that there is a story, there's an idea going in the background, right? Let me see if
How's
I
your
have another.
collaboration when you do the story lighting? Do you talk to other cinematic artists or writers or anything to establish the color, the mood, the lighting, or do you get the general idea of the story and then you are left alone to do the referencing and the mood board? How does that work for you?
In China, they gave me the freedom on it, but generally I was in touch with the art director Mike Greer and head of animations Hunter Schmidt. And we were basically brainstorming about it. So I was having the initial idea, showing them, hey, I got this cool idea. So what do you think? And they're like, they're either not exactly what I want, or they're like, yeah, that goes well, let's do it that way, or they were proposing something else. We had a really good pipeline with them, but it's like both stuff. Again, sometimes I was free to do it. Sometimes there was like a distinct look that they were looking for, so I was going for it. So, for example, that corrupted forest was the idea that they had in their mind. So I needed to keep that. But for that transition, that was the idea. So the explosion was in place, but that transition was not there. And then when we were chatting, I was like, hey, what if we made this transition through that explosion and let the player see that this transition is actually happening from the explosion? And then we came up with this transitional lighting set. So it's like a two-way stuff. Again, in here, this is the latest one that I published online. In here, for example, this was the beginning of a boss fight. So the idea from the art direction for me was show the boss menacing. That was the thing that they asked me for. And see, it is like a backlit environment, just a silhouette to hide the identity at first, and then gradually revealing who is her, and then having this like how was it, like the bottom lighting to support her as being like a tough, dangerous, corrupted being. Let me see if I have any more shots in here as well. You can see like the bottom lighting coming from. So actually it's mixed with the both. Actually, there we go. There's the shot that I was looking for. In that one, for example, on top of that briefing, I just did that, but I was free in the techniques that I needed to go for. So I used the fire as a backlighting, and gradually, as you can see from that shot, which you barely see the face, the details of the character, to that one, you can see the gradual change. So we are slowly revealing the identity of the boss, right?
So these shots are made ahead of time in terms of story, and then you get the shots and then you light it. You kind of know what's happening, or do you have to coordinate while they're deciding the shots?
No, I actually joined Ember Lab relatively late in the production, so the scenes, the previews were already done by the time I
Cool.
joined. So it was easier. But there were like in Formula One, for example, um, some of the scenes were not actually were in like a previous state when I joined, and then I needed to coordinate with the teams and do the changes accordingly.
Okay. So, by the way, hey Jay Lopez, thanks for tuning in. I have a question for you, Harold. Rodrigo is
Mhm.
asking, based on your work in Kina, in our opinion, or your opinion, what is the main difference between lighting stylized and realistic styles? What is stylized strengths and weaknesses compared with realistic?
Hmm. Generally, in technical sense, I'm not really separating them because I like the artistic side of using stylized proportions, maybe stylized textures, but realistic lighting. That aesthetic, like I love it. I really love it. For the pros and cons, in stylized, you can get away with, again, more stylized colors and sell them. But in realistic, let's say that you oversaturated a scene, you can't really get away with it in most of the times. I'm not telling that you can't, but in most of the stuff, it will not going to look that realistic. But in stylized, it is already stylized and you can get away with it. It is just as an example, just as a case. But strengths and weaknesses. Is a strength. Maybe you are more free. No, actually not, because in realistic, you also have this fantasy looking realistic stuff. So I don't think that there's a huge separation between them because the approach is going to be the same. But in realistic, again, maybe you might want to be a bit closer, actually how this stuff is looking or actually making sense. And in stylized, and it's already stylized, so you can just slightly get out of that really realistic looking thing, you know? You know what I mean? If that makes sense. I don't know if I was able to explain myself clearly, but I can't really tell that this is good about realistic, this is bad about realistic.
Cool. I have another question from Edwin. From a
Mhm.
production standpoint, if you can talk about it, how do you manage to organize scheduling of lighting all the shots, and did you iterate a lot on each one?
I can't really talk about our production in Splash at the moment, but in a general level, the leads and producers are actually scheduling this stuff together with you. So when they plan to assign something on you, they come to you and say, all right, so we have this, this, and that. So how long do you think it will take for you to do? And then you sit down and, all right, so this is that. You get the checklist, and then like you can say, all right, 5 days, 10 days, whatever. And then you compare it with how much time that it required to be, then you get with your scheduling up. And yes, some of the shots required a lot of iterations. And sometimes it was easier, but for example, the shot that I showed you, this transitional one, took a lot of iterations to nail it down, both on the technical and artistic perspectives. Because yeah, we had this like cool early morning shot, which when you watch the scene in entirety, it starts as a like a blue hour, almost blue hour kind of really early morning, and then it progresses as the scene goes on. And we actually used that idea in several scenes in Cana with the time progressing with this story. And it took us a lot of iterations to dig in the actual look that we all liked. So, yes, probably that answers your question. We iterated a lot in some of them.
Cool, makes sense. So with Kina, you obviously done a few things, and I understand some of the questions too, because I do also get questions quite often about stylized and realistic. What's the difference? Is there, can you push more in one? Can you do more on the other? I think for me, probably, but it depends on the theme. So
Mhm.
in sci-fi realistic, you can push more, but in realistic, say the 80s, 70s, obviously there's a limitation. You can't start adding too many purple light or I don't know,
Mhm.
orange light and rim light and stuff, but then you can do it in stylized. So I think generally there's no right and wrong way of answering that. It's very
Yeah,
contextual.
yeah. So, for example, in Battlefield 1, for example, you can't really go and make, all right, okay, I'll make this sunlight blue. Because, for example, Battlefield 1 was World War One game, right? So it is supposed to be super realistic game, and you can't do that. But in Jedi Fallen Order, you might, because the alteration might come in and tell you, all right, this is a planet that has that kind of atmosphere. So it has a different atmosphere than the world is. So the star around it can be in a different color, or the scattering of the atmosphere can be different. So this is more like a stylized realism. But there are games which is like strictly realist, and there are like stylized realism and then stylized. So it is kind of a scale, I think. So like you said, there's no way of trues and wrongs, or corrects or wrongs in that regard. It's up to the art direction.
So, do you have any tips and advice for fellow people, generally speaking, who wants to learn lighting? Could be environment artists, could be people who want to improve the portfolio, it could be lighting artists, so on. And do you have any tips and advice you think that is useful for people to
Hmm.
pick up and help them in the path ahead?
Yeah, that's gonna be a
Should we
tough question to answer.
should I launch a break with you? What do you think?
like, uh, like, um, the thing is, what is important for us? You can learn tools all the time. The important thing is to understand why we are lighting in certain ways. So if any environment artist or anybody who want to work or become a lighting artist, first go and investigate cinematic lighting, photography lighting, real world, how the lighting real world works, how you can replicate it, try to break it down, what Mother Nature is doing, and go and actually research about it in physics papers. Maybe an extreme case, but yeah, I did it. And the
Mm.
physical lighting helped with that as well, which I can put it in the engine basically. And understand how light works, and then understand why we are using lighting in that way. For example, back to the example in Cana. So let me find the scene. So, for example, that one of Tara's shot. Why I used a split lighting? It is not a random thing. Oh, it looks cool. I'll just use a split lighting. No, you. need to have this understanding of when a split lighting is used, when a Rembrandt lighting is used, when a front light, a full front light is being used probably, or an underlight is used, or whatever. When, what kind of situations you might want to have an underexposed image, these kind of stuff. So the theory is the most important thing. You can learn about the tools, but the theory makes you an artist.
Okay. So go
Actually,
learn
not
theory.
just theory, but theory and execution together, but having this strong theory and then learning how to transfer it properly in the engine, in rendering, whatever. Yeah. So my suggestion, not just think lighting as, okay, here's a point light, drop it down, sun, like sunlight and skylight, boom, it's done. No, our work is more than that. Why I put it in a certain situation. Again, yeah, basically, but that's what I can say about it. It's a deceivingly tough question, to be honest. I'll keep answering it because I'll keep it in my mind and I'll keep like elaborating more on that. And if that's not clear, you
Uh,
can just ask.
yeah, no, the reason I ask is a lot of people think lighting is very easy. A lot of people think all you need to do is learn the engine and drop it and drag the lighting. But that's one of the reasons I started lighting, but was to make it more visible that talking to an interior designer, talking to an art director, talking to someone who paints. These are all relevant people to learn from when we do lighting. It's not really just about the engine and drag and dropping the lighting. You can get a good head start knowing it, sure, but if you want to keep doing it, you definitely want to learn from other stuff, other professions that does
I'll
also
open up a
lighting.
parenthesis here. In the game lighter perspective, you need to know how to guide the player. That's and by itself is a really, really difficult thing to do. And it's not just like, hey, all right, so there's a stairs that we want to play today. Drop a spotlight. Make it no. I just explained being a lighting artist, being walking in the snow without really leaving any footprints. People shouldn't really realize that you're actually showing them something. They should be aware of it, but subconsciously. Not like, oh, here's a spotlight, I need to go there. Sometimes maybe, again, it's a context thing, but most of the time, probably not. And I have a story on people thinking lighting is really like an easy thing. And I keep telling this over and over and over again, especially to my students. And if there are any students online today, they'll say like, oh, how did I heard that before? Not again. Because I keep telling, like back when I was in Istanbul at my first months as a lighting artist, I was always in a common working space with other game developers, which were more on mobile side, where they were doing some hyper casual games and stuff. And I was working on Unreal Engine, and a specific group were always coming at me, and I was like, "Hey, how are you doing?" I was like, "Good. I'm just, trying to learn some stuff. I'm lighting something." They were like, "Lighting artist? Who would pay you? I mean, nobody would pay you because just you dropped some, lighting artist and be done with it. I can do it. My level designer can do it." And I was like, it's stupid. Like, you are the most clever person in the games industry or something, and people are just spending millions on lighting artists. Are they stupid? No. We are as important as directors of photography and cinematography because we are executing that. We are executing the vision of art direction into the scene. Lighting is difficult because it is a bridge. It's like another way of explaining is I see if anybody interested in football, I see lighters as the strikers. A good team can be without a striker, they can score. But if you have a really good striker like Lewandowski, you will score more goals. It will be easier for you to score goals, right? I see it like that.
Had I known you were going to say that, I would have added background music. Or something more
That's too dramatic. I would require more something more powerful, more like motivating stuff like Eye of Tiger maybe. Go and punch the people who think lighting is easy. It's not.
Yeah.
Oh, where's my
So
camera?
we have time to one last question, which is a very long question. So let me read it out as well. Hi guys, very interesting chat. Also, hi, thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.
Um,
Great working here now.
I recognize the name. Very interesting chat. Great work on Key. And I have a question about scheduling. If you are anything like me, I find estimating the time it would take to light cinematic sequences challenging. Obviously, each shot can vary in how much time it takes, but when you know, for example, that you will have 5,000 cinematic shots in your game and the producer wants an estimate of how many hours on average it will take to light each shot, I was wondering if you have the rule of thumb as to how many hours you spend on each shot.
No, no, no. It's like really depending on the context. Like I don't think that there's a golden rule for that. And in production generally, as you progress through, when you see a scene, you can like somehow guess. You can tell, all right, can be 5 days. But when you're a junior or inexperienced, there are always going to be more experienced people in the team that will like suggest the times. And generally, the teams always have their plan Bs. So it's not just restricted at 5 days. If you skip, all the production's gone. Of course, you shouldn't be like going too much out of your schedules. But again, in that's what I like about being in a team. There's always going to be support from production and leads on that regard. So, I don't think that there's a golden rule for that to like really estimate X amount of time on that. It really depends on the complexity of the scene, the technical things that it will require, how much detail it's supposed to be, because you really would not want to spend a lot of time on a like a really brief thing. For example, a really straightforward corridor where just player will run through. You would not want to spend 2 weeks on it. You just want to place a clear, let's say clear, like, not visibly clear, but serving to the purpose lighting, which will be good enough to support the gameplay or whatever, and then you might want to be done with it because the other scenes which are going to be more important are supposed to be on the screen more. So again, it's like a matter of prioritizing this stuff in your head as well. So it has like branches, like lots of stuff that you should think.
I think these questions, and I mean this with all respect as well, there's a lot of questions that is like, what's the one answer to do it all? The one ring that controls it
No,
all. It's like, what?
if I
It's
ever
not that
gonna
how it
find it,
works.
yeah, if I ever gonna find it, would I share it? I don't know.
Let us. Let me put it this way: if there was one way of doing it, we wouldn't be needing lighting artists. Coders would be automating everything because they would exactly know how to do things every each
Yeah.
time. So, my perspective of your question is experience. As you get experience, you will know. Okay, these type of shots with this character takes me this much time because it's one character. Okay, this is a large environment, two characters. This will take me this much time. Obviously, you add a bit of extra time to compensate for any technical challenges or new skills you need to learn. These are the things as well, but you also can talk to other people. A lot of people have experience as well, so you can talk to your cinematic artist or a lead cinematic, or you can talk to someone else who's done other projects similar, and they can tell you also from their point of view that this is how much it normally takes. And in some cases you don't get to choose. Sometimes you just say, hey, this is the sequence, this is how long it takes, which is very common in animation studios, lighting and the animation part of the world. So sometimes you don't have a choice to do that. Well, VFX also very commonly have very strict deadlines, and this is the time you get, and you have to figure it out basically.
Yeah, I mean, again, it is not like a golden thing, like you said. Like, if we all knew the absolute thing, then we would not be different people. And I really would like to believe that we are hired because we are, as artists, individual artists, not just X amount of money eating stereotypical artist who will do its task. No, we are supposed to be hired because we, individual artists, has a style, has a thing. So that's why the portfolios are there. So basically, if imagine all of us has the same portfolio, what would be the difference? What would be the thing about being an artist? Everybody has their own taste. Even we don't see the world as the same as we do. This is a real physical, biological thing. I mean, probably you and me are seeing colors slightly different. Maybe I see blue like slightly different than you, and even the tastes are different. And that is what I like. So generally, I'll just tie into it something really contemporary, which is like people just keep asking me about the AI stuff. Oh, how is it going to change us? If you take out the human element from the art, I think it is going to lose its spirit. Because like if you take a look at, I don't mean that it's a bad thing. What was the name of that AI thing that creates images? I don't remember the name. Whatever that thing. So I was seeing some AI stuff that people are putting online. I did this in AI tool, but they basically feel the same as if they came out from the same artist's hands. So what is the difference here? So human element.
A lot of people believe in the future it is possible, but for time being, I do think context and motivation and the thoughts and feelings behind art is you can automate it, sure, using some kind of guidelines, but I think it will never be the same as the individual artist,
Not at the
basically.
moment, because art, like maybe it's safe that art comes within ourselves. Like in art, we are trying to express something, especially in personal works as well. You try to explain something from your soul, let's say. And if you take out the soul and just leave the technical side, then what is the difference with me and X and Y and whoever? What's the difference between us?
So I'm gonna be a devil's advocate because obviously it's a podcast, so it wouldn't be fun if I agree with you. So on purpose, I'm gonna go the other way. I'm gonna challenge you. I'm gonna say, okay, but art is also the person who perceives and watches the art. So even if an AI creates it, if you as a viewer watches it and you feel something, even the AI has succeeded in creating something because you as the viewer you do feel something. It's subjective at the end of the day. So how do you tackle that kind of challenges and counter argument?
So the question that you ask is more like a high level art thing, and it is out of being actual craft artists. Idea is an art too. So this is another topic. Can be. But again, as an lighting artist, as an actual crafting artist, what I believe is if I am an artist, I would like to have the ownership that I am doing, not just tell to a machine, all right, Bromley under fire, Mount Vesuvius here and there, giving some ashes in a sci-fi world. Do something with that. I mean, it is, I just gave it the idea. So what is the difference in that of people who are just entering to the games industry and telling people, "Oh, I have a crazy idea, and we're gonna do this and do that and do this," and it's just being done. So it's just creating an idea, maybe an idea art. But again, where is the craftsmanship? Craftsmanship is an art as well.
And that's why I think a lot of people who are doing lighting at the moment, in the beginning, it's okay to light an environment that we all have lit just to show you understand lighting. But eventually, you want to add some story, some
Mhm.
emotion, something to actually show that you're an artist, not just someone who's learning the technical part of lighting. And that's where I think people need to continue learning as well. We had one more question, and then I'll. Not take too much of your time because we're already a bit over time because we're both eager today. Um, J. Lopez says, "Can you give example of his lighting choices? He mentioned when to use a certain lighting setup to help tell a story. He mentioned using Rembrandt versus split lighting. I say split lighting is on the screen right now. Lopez says, yes, I know. It's a question of his motivation for his lighting choices.
Hmm.
Do you
Let
understand?
me think. Yeah, yeah. Let me think on that. How can I show? If I have anything in ArtStation to show that to really clearly explain it. I can answer it on theoretical in that regard. But when I created, let me go to ArtStation on something, and which I like
While
to
you,
do
while
recently.
you, yeah, because while you look for it, I can continue the conversation about because it connects to his
Yeah,
question, which is
there it is though. Like I'm quicker. Haha.
well,
So I'm recently doing these doodle practices a lot, and in these, so for example, when I'm doing it, I have a basic environment, And then I said, all right, I will go with this, with that, and some ideas, maybe some visual choices from the game. So to answer these questions in my hand, I put these things on the table. My color knowledge, my color ratio knowledge, or basically color usage table. So for example, comparing the first one to the second one. In the first one, this was like a tranquil sunset kind of look. So how I achieved that with the warmer spectrum of colors, right? It is not like a greenish sunset. It's more like an orangey sunset, which is like have this really warm colors, and you can see that it's tinted slightly to the warmer colors to represent that, right? Again, the color theory is in place for that. In the second one, I'm predominantly using a sickly greenish yellow, which I inspired from World of Warcraft, Shadowman Valley in Outland, which are having this green that represents, in for example, in World of Warcraft, that green is represented the fell, demons, and corruption. So I wanted to use that color as the key light, the key color. And for the undertones in the shadows, I don't know how detailed you can see it, but you can see that there's this like magenta, reddish magenta undertones in the shadows, which represents danger. So I'm using my theoretical knowledge and combine it with my actual practical knowledge to tackle it. In a game environment, there are lots more coming because now we have the player looking around. So in this sense, I should think any other elements as well. But if I continue with the comparisons on the scenes, again in the third ones, you can see like a like almost monochrome. Like in fact, it is like close to analogous, but more like a monochrome kind of. I can call it analogous, but it's not the same hue actually. So it's an analogous blue look, which gives you this really cold feeling, right? Because in that one, what I was trying to represent more like the Winterfell kind of this Game of Thrones North kind of look, which has this like darker shadows in the old castle. Wow, what a noisy car.
I live in the middle of London, so
Oh, good luck with that. So again, the stronger shadows and blue to feel you cold because in our subconscious, blue is a cold color associated a cold color. So I don't know if if this explains it for you. If not, just drop another question and I can elaborate more. But generally, in the artistic sense, this is the approach that I'm taking. Knowing the story that I'm going for, then researching about how I can represent it to the audience. So this is the workflow that I'm taking. You're muted.
that's about it. That's all we have time for. Well, we already gone over time, which is normally my time to talk to them in private. So I'm gonna steal him for myself a little bit and catch up with him a little bit. So thank you, Harriet, for showing up, and thank you for all your insight and
It's my
knowledge.
pleasure. It's my pleasure. Thank
And
you all. And just one question I need to answer that if anybody wants to contact me, because I'm getting lots of complaints on that, me not returning to them, not replying.
we can see that it
Actually,
says 14 on your so
oh
your
yeah,
station.
I mean yeah, basically yeah, it is like it's like a mess. So if you ever contacted me and if I didn't responded, not because I'm a douchebag, but I probably missed your message. So please resend the message again. And even if you want to contact me in the future and I didn't want to respond, you can just tell, hey, look at here, I sent you a message. Right? Please respond, and I'll definitely go back because I have the tendency of missing messages these days. Sorry about that. You can reach me through LinkedIn and ArtStation.
It's true. I had to message him a few times.
Yeah,
But
I'm like I'm guilty of that. Yeah.
it's not the best system. Even on LinkedIn and Outstation, people don't really pay attention. You have to spam a little bit to so they understand it's somewhat important. Thank you everyone for. Please follow Harriet on Outstation. It's one of the reasons we put it up, so you guys can just type in his name and follow him. You know, he's a great guy. And yeah, please like and subscribe. There's still a few of you that haven't done it because I can tell the amount of people watching and the amount of people not liking and subscribing. Please support the free community here. I would appreciate that. And Harid, I'll talk to you a little bit after I hang up now, but we'll just wave goodbye for now. Thank you, everyone. Please leave
Oh,
some
guys,
positive comments
wish
to
me like he's
Harid.
gonna kill me.
Thank you. Bye.